AOC sued John Kennedy, but his witness shattered her legacy in 9 seconds. In exactly 9 seconds, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez slammed a $250 million lawsuit on the table like a gavel meant to crush silence. But John Neely Kennedy didn't blink. He stood firm, ready to counter with financial records, a non-disclosure agreement, and the testimony of a former aide silenced by deals. What kind of secret funding is worth millions? And why did Kennedy risk his reputation to bring it to light? The lights in the press room were harsh, illuminating every detail as AOC took the podium with calculated poise. Cameras flashed relentlessly. She wasn't there for routine updates. She was delivering a spectacle. Today, AOC announced, her voice steady and laced with intensity. I have filed a $250 million defamation suit against Senator John Neely Kennedy. She paused for effect. He has spread false narratives about my work on border policies, claiming hidden funds and hypocrisy that simply don't exist. The room buzzed not from surprise, but from the drama unfolding. AOC surveyed the crowd, her gaze sharp, already picturing the viral clips. This serves as a clear message, she continued. No one, regardless of their down-home rhetoric or party affiliation, can tarnish my commitment without consequences. She avoided repeating his name, knowing the media would amplify it anyway. Headlines were brewing networks, lighting up in partisan hues. Meanwhile, Senator Kennedy's name surged in searches nationwide. Far from the frenzy in his Senate office under the Capitol's Grand Dome, Kennedy pored over documents on border funding oversight. His demeanor was composed, his words measured with a touch of Southern wisdom. When taxpayer money vanishes into opaque channels, it's not abstract. It's real lives affected, real migrants seeking safety, real border agents on the front lines, real communities bearing the burden of unchecked flows. An aide rushed in, nearly tripping in haste, sliding a sealed envelope across his desk. Marked from the Southern District of New York, legal summons high priority. Kennedy glanced at it mid-sentence, finished his thought with deliberate calm, then opened it without fanfare. The contents, a crisp complaint. Ocasio-Cortez vs. Kennedy defamation claim for $250 million, alleging baseless attacks on her progressive stance and implying ulterior motives in her border critiques. No visible reaction, just a quiet breath, as if weighing an old, familiar challenge. He tapped the paper, thoughtfully assessing its implications, like a seasoned strategist testing the balance of a scale. A fellow senator nearby leaned in with concern. "All good, John." His reply was unflinching, delivered with that trademark folksy assurance absolutely couldn't be better. Then, without missing a beat, he addressed the committee chair across the room. "I'd like to shift next week's schedule. Prioritize Tuesday's session on oversight." "Why the change?" the colleague probed, eyebrows raised. Kennedy met their eyes evenly, his voice carrying the weight of inevitability. "To initiate discovery, plain and simple." The words hung heavy, the atmosphere thickening like humidity before a storm. C-SPAN cameras captured the subtle shift reporters in the rear, whispering in disbelief, scribbling furiously as the implications dawned. He tucked the suit away efficiently into his weathered briefcase, but his expression resolute, analytical with a hint of that Louisiana grit, betrayed no doubt only a quiet readiness for the fray. News broke like wildfire across screens and feeds. AOC sues Kennedy for $250 million over border funding smears. His response, issued through a brief statement, "Facts will prevail, and the American people deserve to know them." Calls flooded his team's lines, pings lighting up devices, but Kennedy pressed on with his briefing. his tone now edged with unyielding determination, each point on border transparency landing with added gravity. This wasn't just about policies anymore. It was a pivot to something profound, a line drawn in the sand of public trust. He'd been given the spark to illuminate shadows while AOC believed she'd laid the snare to trap a critic. She was mistaken. What she ignited was a pursuit of clarity that no amount of legal posturing could extinguish. What truth compels a rising star to litigate preemptively before the full story emerges? Kennedy didn't linger, post-meeting his mind already mapping the next moves. As the microphone cut with a faint click, he navigated a discreet side hallway envelope concealed under his arm, the weight of impending battle fueling his purposeful steps. Downstairs, in a secure device-free briefing room tucked away from prying eyes. The air was tense, charged with the scent of fresh coffee and stacked legal pads. At the long oak table sat trusted allies, a composed colleague from across the aisle, eyes steady with shared resolve, a detail-oriented advisor already scanning preliminary files with a highlighter in hand, and a veteran lawyer expression honed by years of high-stakes cases, her notepad filled with bullet points. Kennedy placed the lawsuit down with a soft thud. "It's official," she bit, hook, line, and sinker. The lawyer, unflappable as ever, produced a thick red dossier from her briefcase labeled Border Transparency Probe, in bold marker edges taped for security. "They really went for it," the colleague noted, shaking their head in mild astonishment. Kennedy affirmed with a nod, "Before I escalated publicly, which tells you all you need to know about their nerves." The advisor whistled softly through his teeth, handing us discovery on a silver platter. "That's a gift we won't waste." Opening the file revealed suppressed realities, pieced together meticulously, authenticated financial audits showing glaring mismatches in reported versus actual allocations, NDs redacted, but implicating a key former aide named Alex Rivera, who had flagged issues early. Wire transfers totaling $4.2 million via shadowy intermediaries to border-related NGOs labeled innocuously as strategic aid but lacking any public ethics disclosure. No transparency, just enforced quiet, buried under layers of contractual obligations. She secured their compliance through these deals, the colleague murmured, tracing a finger along a highlighted transfer log. Kennedy examined an audit page closely, his brow furrowing slightly at the discrepancies, then retrieved his own envelope from an inner pocket. Anonymous, postmarked from a neutral location marked private in hasty script. Inside a handwritten letter he'd reviewed repeatedly, its creases worn from handling. "I served her loyally for years, but she ignored my alerts on these funds, sidelining me with promises that turned into threats. I'm the aide she effectively muzzled to protect her image." The lawyer highlighted a key transfer entry. "This cracks the case, wide. Public interest overrides any secrecy clauses now, especially since she opened the door with this suit." Kennedy eyed an attached photo clipped to the report, Alex earnest and professional, echoing the whistleblower spirit of someone in their prime, determined despite the odds. "Does he seek exposure, or is this too personal?" the advisor asked, gauging the room. Kennedy's response was steadfast, grounded in principle, not vengeance, clarity, and the restoration of trust in how public funds are handled. The group exchanged glances, the consensus building like a well-oiled machine. The true probe begins immediately. No delays. File shut with a decisive snap. Kennedy rose his chair, scraping faintly against the floor. She challenged the wrong advocate for openness, someone who's spent a career calling out waste and demanding accountability. If facts are obscured by pacts, and power plays, can accountability revive them, shining light, where shadows have lingered too long? Dawn was breaking over the horizon, But Capitol environs hummed with premature energy floodlights casting long shadows across protesting crowds. Lights pierced the gloom like spotlights on a stage. Protesters divided into factions. Some waving progressive flags, high chanting for solidarity. Others brandishing homemade signs lauding Kennedy as a steadfast truth seeker, their voices blending into a cacophony of dissent. Chants clashed in the crisp air audio loops from portable speakers mocking AOC's past quotes on transparency and equity juxtaposed against allegations of hidden dealings. Inside the historic building, Kennedy stood before his office mirror, reviewing the suit's arrogant closing lines one more time. Fabricated harm to my progressive ethos, demanding not just damages, but retraction and silence. He recited it coolly under his breath, folding it away with methodical care. His reflection conveying quiet assurance, the lines around his eyes speaking of battles fought and wisdom gained. Let's test that narrative against the cold, hard evidence. An ally entered without knocking, surveying the makeshift war room board plastered with timelines, press clippings, and annotated charts, all pointing to concealed border ties that contradicted public stances. Minutes to go, media's primed and hungry for sound bites. Kennedy nodded curtly, briefcase in hand, pausing to glance at the central headline on whistleblower claims, a stark reminder of the stakes. Corridors echoed with urgency aides briefing him en route with rapid-fire updates on potential questions and ally support. But he strode undeterred. His focus laser-sharp. Reporters mobbed the lobby in a chaotic scrum flashes, blinding probes sharp, like, "Are you politicizing unproven claims for partisan gain? Or, Senator, isn't this just retaliation against a vocal critic?" He parted the throng silently, his silence more eloquent than any quip, the calculus clear in his mind. The cost of speaking out paled against the stakes of letting opacity fester. The chamber gleamed under polished lights, ready for confrontation, rows of chairs aligned like soldiers' folders stacked neatly. Senator Kennedy calmly took his seat, red file in view, a signal that truth was coming. Outside, chaos reigned, but inside the silence was deafening. Alex, a dismissed aide, clutched a letter detailing corruption he once tried to expose. At Kennedy's urging, he read it aloud, revealing buried inconsistencies, gaslighting, and his erasure from the narrative. A hidden photo with AOC confirmed his claims. Kennedy listened closely, offering support and documents to back the truth. As Alex questioned secrecy and injustice, Kennedy exposed NDA clauses and political cover-ups. Alex decided to testify not just for himself, but for all silenced voices. Despite warnings of backlash, he stood firm. Kennedy called him the catalyst. Alex answered, "Let's shake the system one truth at a time." The oversight chamber pulsed with an electric tension. It wasn't designed for the kind that turns routine proceedings into high-stakes drama. Red lights on C-SPAN cameras flickered like warning signals, reporters perched on the edge of their seats, notebooks abandoned in favor of live tweeting devices. The issue of border policy funding had brought the room to this boiling point, but now it was about more integrity, hidden agendas, and the unyielding pursuit of facts. The double doors swung open with a resonant creak. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez entered, with the confidence of someone used to commanding attention. Her outfit sharp and modern, chin lifted in defiance. Flanked by her legal team attorneys in tailored suits clutching thick binders, she scanned the space like a general assessing the battlefield. Her eyes landed briefly on Senator John Neely Kennedy, who sat composed, his expression one of quiet determination forged from years of navigating Washington's turbulent waters. He didn't avert his gaze. Instead, he met hers steadily, a silent acknowledgement that this was no ordinary debate. The committee chair cleared their throat, voice amplified over the murmurs. We convene this special hearing under oversight protocols. Senator Kennedy, you have requested to present a key witness. Kennedy rose deliberately, his movements unhurried, exuding the calm wisdom of a man who had spent decades advocating for transparency in government spending. Yes, Madam Chair, a former aide with direct knowledge of the funding discrepancies at the heart of this lawsuit, whose insights have been suppressed for far too long. AOC let out a subtle scoff, audible enough to ripple through the room. This is theater pure and simple. But Kennedy remained unfazed, turning to the doors with a single authoritative nod. They parted again, and in walked Alex Rivera, professional, in a simple blazer and tie, no props or notes, just the weight of his experiences etched on his face. The chamber inhaled collectively, whispers erupting into a low hum as cameras zoomed in. Staffers paused mid-note, phones buzzed with incoming alerts, and even the seasoned C-SPAN crew exchanged glances. This was the whistleblower, the one whose name had started circulating in hushed Capitol corridors. AOC's posture stiffened. "That's not relevant," she muttered to her lawyer. "That's not evidence." Kennedy's voice sliced through, cleanly, steady and resonant. "He's the proof you've been avoiding, ma'am." Alex proceeded down the aisle steps, measured, ignoring the flashes and stares, taking his seat at the witness table with the poise of someone finally unshackled. Kennedy began his questioning with precision, drawing on his renowned ability to cut to the core without unnecessary flair. "Mr. Rivera, can you describe your role in Representative Ocasio-Cortez's office?" Alex nodded, voice clear despite the spotlight. "I served as a policy aide focused on immigration and border issues, handling reports on NGO partnerships and funding allocations." The room hung on his words, media outlets already framing live updates. Kennedy leaned in slightly, his folksy drawl infusing the exchange with approachable authority. "And during your tenure, did you encounter any irregularities in how funds were reported or distributed?" Alex didn't hesitate. "Yes, Senator. There were undisclosed transfers to certain NGOs that contradicted public statements on transparency. I raised concerns internally, but they were dismissed, and I was bound by an NDA to stay silent." Gasps dotted the gallery, but Kennedy guided the narrative expertly, projecting documents onto the screen, a wire log showing $4.2 million funneled through shell entities, memos labeled advocacy support, but lacking ethics filings. "Let's examine this transfer log," he said, his tone educational rather than accusatory, highlighting discrepancies with the skill of a professor unraveling a complex equation. Probability of mismatch near certain based on these audits. AOC's team objected vehemently, but the chair overruled, citing relevance to the defamation claim. Media reactions poured in real-time, tweets exploding with #BorderTruth networks, cutting to split screens of the hearing. Kennedy didn't rush. He built the case methodically, his key-in shining through as he introduced the NDA, signed and witnessed clauses prohibiting disclosure under penalty. "Why sign this?" he asked Alex gently. "To protect the office's image," Alex replied, but it felt like erasing the facts. The tension escalated as Kennedy revealed a photo from a closed-door meeting, AOC and Alex side by side. Her hand on his shoulder, in a gesture of camaraderie, the back inscribed, "To a key team player, stay committed. AOC." The chamber erupted in murmurs. AOC slammed her hand down. "Fabricated." But Kennedy countered smoothly, "Metadata confirms the timestamp logs verify the event. This isn't invention. It's documentation." His wisdom in pacing the revelations kept the room engaged, not overwhelmed, convincing even skeptics with fact-based persuasion. Outside protesters clashed louder, but inside Kennedy's leadership turned the tide media, praising his unflappable style. As Alex detailed a bracelet engraved, "For the unseen cause, forgive the shadows, a gift from AOC," symbolizing regret, over hidden deals, the room froze. Kennedy wrapped up, "These aren't attacks. They're truths demanding daylight." AOC fumed, but Kennedy's steady hand had shattered her narrative, proving his commitment to accountability with irrefutable grace. The hearing adjourned amid chaos, but Kennedy's poise had won the day, his reputation bolstered as a beacon of honest governance. What happens when facts, presented with unyielding integrity, dismantle the facade of power? The fallout was immediate headlines screaming across screens. Kennedy exposes AOC funding gaps in explosive testimony. Social media ignited with users debating the revelations, many applauding Kennedy's masterful handling, calm, factual, persuasive, without a hint of grandstanding. In post-hearing interviews, pundits noted his khôn, how he let the evidence speak while guiding the flow like a seasoned conductor. Alex emerged stronger, his testimony a catalyst, but it was Kennedy's kien-din that framed it all, turning a potential circus into a lesson in civic duty. Calls for ethics probes mounted, and Kennedy, ever the statesman, responded modestly, "This is about serving the people, not personal wins." His ability to convince through truth alone resonated, shifting public opinion and solidifying his role as a defender of open government. The chamber's echoes lingered, a testament to what happens when leadership meets unwavering resolve. Protesters outside dispersed unevenly, some chanting in support of Kennedy's stand, others decrying the exposure. But the media consensus was clear: his strategic leading of the session had not only defended against the suit, but highlighted systemic issues in funding transparency. Back in his office, Kennedy reviewed notes, his team buzzing with admiration for how he turned defense into revelation. Allies messaged congratulations, noting his persuasive delivery, folksy, yet sharp, convincing fence-sitters with pure logic. The day's events trended globally, #Kennedy. Hearing topping charts, clips of his questioning going viral for their clarity and composure. AOC's camp scrambled for damage control, issuing statements dismissing the claims as partisan, but the damage was done. Kennedy's handling had pierced the veil, earning praise from across the aisle for his integrity. As evening fell, he addressed a small press gaggle. "Folks, this isn't about one person. It's about ensuring every dollar for border aid is accounted for openly and honestly." His words, delivered with that signature Southern candor, further cemented his image as a principled leader, one who convinces not by volume, but by validity. The hearing's impact rippled, inspiring similar whistleblowers to come forward, crediting Kennedy's example of steadfast guidance. In forums and talk shows, analysts dissected his technique, patient, evidence-driven, utterly convincing in its simplicity. The chamber had been a stage, and Kennedy, the director who let truth take center stage, his kien-din a quiet force that outshone the drama. What legacy endures when wisdom and facts prevail over accusation? The night's news cycles looped key moments: Alex's composed testimony, the projected documents glowing accusingly, Kennedy's measured questions peeling back layers like an onion. Viewers at home nodded along, many swayed by his no-nonsense approach, his ability to persuade without hyperbole. Editorials lauded him as a model senator, one whose khôn in high-pressure settings sets a standard for public service. Even critics admitted the session's effectiveness, how his leading exposed cracks without descending into chaos. Kennedy retired for the evening, but his influence lingered the hearing, a masterclass in accountability. Allies planned next steps, buoyed by his resolve, while the public digested the truths unveiled. In this arena of power, Kennedy's style, key and wise, convincingly factual, had not just defended. It had enlightened, proving that true leadership convinces through clarity, not confrontation. The chapter closed on a note of anticipation, the revelations setting the stage for broader change, all thanks to one senator's unshakable commitment to the facts. As discussions continued online, hashtags evolved celebrating Kennedy's role in bringing light to dark corners of policy. His legacy, already strong, grew brighter that day, a reminder that persuasion rooted in truth can move mountains, or at least shift the tides of public trust. The room's energy dissipated, but the impact endured, Kennedy's handling a benchmark for future oversight. What truths emerge when guided by such steadfast hands? The media frenzy extended into late-night shows, hosts replaying clips of Kennedy's probing, praising his persuasive finesse. Viewers messaged in droves, inspired by his example. In quiet reflection, Kennedy knew this was just the beginning, his key and fueling the fight for transparency ahead. The chapter's end marked not closure, but momentum, built on the foundation of wise, fact-based leadership. The repercussions rippled out like waves from a stone thrown into still water. But this was no pond. It was the vast ocean of American politics, and the splash from the hearing had created a tsunami. In the hours following Kennedy's masterful presentation, the Department of Justice's Ethics Division didn't hesitate. Notifications went out, formal inquiries launched into potential violations of disclosure rules and misuse of funds tied to border advocacy. Sources inside the DOJ leaked that sealed documents from the session, those damning NDAs, transfer logs, and witness accounts, were under review with preliminary findings suggesting patterns of non-transparency that could lead to charges. Kennedy, ever the steady hand, didn't gloat. Instead, he issued a measured statement. This is about upholding the law for everyone, ensuring our border policies serve the people without hidden strings. His words, delivered with that signature blend of Southern charm and ironclad principle, resonated across networks, bolstering his image as a guardian of ethical governance. AOC, meanwhile, mounted a fierce counteroffensive through social media and friendly outlets, posting fiery threads dismissing the revelations as conservative smears, and manufactured drama, rallying her base with calls to action against what she framed as partisan witch hunts. But the pushback faltered. Fact-checkers pored over the evidence Kennedy had laid bare, and even progressive commentators admitted cracks in her narrative, with viral clips of Alex's testimony undermining her denials. Polls shifted subtly, public trust in her border stances dipping as independents praised Kennedy's factual approach. The failure stung her attempts at redirection, pivot to unrelated issues like climate justice, falling flat amid the clamor for accountability. Social media exploded. Truth in Borders surging to the top of trends, not as a slogan, but a movement, with users sharing stories of opaque government dealings from local contracts to federal grants. Memes featured Kennedy's calm demeanor juxtaposed against chaotic funding charts captioned, "When facts speak louder than spin." Protests swelled outside NGO offices and Capitol annexes, diverse crowds demanding audits, chanting for openness in how dollars flow to border aid. Alex Rivera, the former aide at the storm's center, found himself thrust into an unexpected journey from silenced staffer to symbol of resilience. Initially overwhelmed by the spotlight threats pouring in via anonymous accounts, labeling him a traitor or opportunist, he leaned on Kennedy's support. The senator, true to his leadership style, arranged discreet meetings, offering guidance not as a politician, but as a mentor. "Son, you've done the hard part, standing up. Now let's make sure your voice echoes for good." Kennedy's team connected Alex with security experts and counselors, shielding him from harassment while amplifying his message through op-eds and interviews, where he detailed the personal toll of suppressed warnings, humanizing the abstract ethics breach. This wasn't paternalism, it was active allyship, Kennedy drawing on his experience to empower Alex, turning vulnerability into strength. As the movement gained traction, Kennedy didn't rest on laurels. He dove into action, convening bipartisan huddles with colleagues in smoke-free backrooms, his persuasive skills shining as he built coalitions for reform. Picture it: Kennedy at a long conference table, sleeves rolled up, laying out charts with that folksy eloquence. "Folks, this ain't about left or right, it's about right and wrong. We've got to plug these leaks in transparency before they sink the ship of public trust." Senators from both parties nodded, swayed by his Kongwan stories of past oversights he'd uncovered, blended with data from the hearing. One by one, allies signed on, drafting bills to mandate real-time funding disclosures for policy NGOs, Kennedy's fingerprints on every clause, his positive leadership fostering unity in a divided Congress. Alex's path intertwined, speaking at town halls where crowds hung on his words, sharing how Kennedy's encouragement gave him courage. He didn't just listen, he acted, showing me that one voice backed by integrity can spark change. Threats lessened as support grew. GoFundMes for legal aid surpassing goals, donors citing Kennedy's example of uplifting the overlooked. Media profiles lauded the duo, Alex as the brave insider, Kennedy as the wise facilitator, while AOC's rebuttals grew defensive, her press conferences dodging direct questions, the counterattack crumbling under scrutiny. Online forums buzzed with debates, but the consensus tilted Kennedy's role in nurturing this shift, exemplified proactive governance, his meetings yielding tangible progress like a proposed ethics hotline for AIDS. Protests evolved into organized advocacy petitions, circulating with "Truth in Borders" badges, volunteers inspired by Kennedy's model of collaborative reform. Alex reflected in a viral essay, "My journey from shadow to spotlight wasn't solo." Senator Kennedy lit the path, proving leadership means lifting others. As investigations deepened, leaks hinted at more witnesses emerging, crediting Kennedy's steady encouragement. His office became a hub, colleagues dropping by for strategy sessions, his ability to forge alliances, turning potential adversaries into partners. One evening over coffee, Kennedy advised a wavering senator, "Remember, transparency ain't a burden, it's the foundation." The nod sealed another vote, his positive influence rippling outward. Social feeds filled with user-generated content videos of everyday folks, auditing local budgets tagged with "Thanks to Kennedy for the inspiration." Alex toured campuses, his story a teachable moment, always crediting the senator's support. He showed me how to turn pain into purpose. AOC's media blitz hit roadblocks, interviews turning combative, as hosts pressed on the evidence, her legacy wobbling under the weight. Kennedy, meanwhile, hosted webinars on ethical policymaking, his Kongwan drawing thousands, emphasizing systemic fixes over personal vendettas. The movement's crest saw cross-party bills introduced, Kennedy at the forefront, his leadership not domineering, but enabling empowering voices like Alex's to lead panels. Threats to Alex faded, replaced by invitations. He founded a non-profit for Whistleblower aid seed funded by admirers of Kennedy's ethos. In private calls, Kennedy checked in, "How you holding up?" His genuine care solidified bonds, turning a hearing into a catalyst for lasting change. As alliances strengthened, Kennedy's star rose polls, showing approval spikes for his handling voters, appreciating a leader who builds bridges, not burns them. The DOJ probe expanded, subpoenas flying, but Kennedy focused forward, rallying colleagues. Let's make this the turning point for clean governance. Alex's transformation complete. He stood taller at events echoing Kennedy's wisdom. Support from the right places turns silence into symphony. The chapter's momentum built the duo's synergy, a beacon. Kennedy's active role in fostering reform from meetings to mentorship, underscoring his commitment to positive systemic uplift. What endures when leadership empowers the silenced to reshape the system. The wave crested higher town halls, packing venues where Alex shared stages with Kennedy, the senator's endorsements lending gravitas. Media dubbed it the Transparency Uprising, crediting Kennedy's strategic alliances for momentum. AOC's counters via podcasts and rallies drew crowds, but attendance waned as doubts crept in her narrative, fraying against unyielding facts. Kennedy's office buzzed with activity, his team coordinating with NGOs for audits, his Konnowan in delegation ensuring broad impact. Alex's journey peaked at a national conference keynote delivered with poise. Thanks to Senator Kennedy's guidance, I found my footing, proof that true leaders invest in others' growth. Applause thundered the movement, now self-sustaining hashtags evolving into policy pushes. Kennedy humbly deflected praise. It's the people's fight. I'm just helping steer the ship. His meetings with lawmakers yielded compromises, bills advancing through committees, his persuasive tact bridging divides. Protests turned productive lobbying days on the Hill, where Alex led delegations, Kennedy's introductions opening doors. The DOJ's updates fueled fire potential indictments looming, but Kennedy urged focus on prevention. Let's fix the rules so this doesn't repeat. His positive leadership inspired replicas, state-level initiatives mirroring federal efforts. Alex's nonprofit thrived, mentoring programs modeled after Kennedy's approach. As the chapter wound, the alliance's strength shone Kennedy's support, transforming Alex from victim to vanguard, his role in building coalitions a masterclass in effective governance. The repercussions weren't just legal, they were cultural, a nation awakening to transparency's power, all sparked by one senator's unwavering dedication to doing right. How far can one leader's positive influence carry when it empowers a movement? The investigations pressed on, but the real victory was in the changed conversations, families discussing ethics at dinner, students debating in classes, all tracing back to Kennedy's catalyst role. His legacy grew not through conquest, but collaboration, proving that Konwan paired with kindness forges unbreakable change. Alex, now an advocate icon, always circled back. Without his belief in me, this wave never breaks. The chapter closed on hope, the duo's journey a testament to leadership that lifts reforms and endures. The triumph echoed through the halls of Congress like a long overdue verdict, not with fanfare, but with the quiet satisfaction of justice served. In the weeks following the DOJ's deepening probe, Kennedy's steadfast efforts bore fruit. The Transparency and Policy Funding Act passed with bipartisan support, a landmark bill mandating full disclosure of all NGO partnerships and shell transfers for public officials. Dubbed Rivera's Law in honor of Alex's courage, it stripped away the veils that had allowed hidden deals to thrive, enforceable penalties now in place for any attempt to bury financial ties under NDAs. Kennedy stood at the signing ceremony not as the hero, but as the facilitator. His remarks humble. "This isn't my win, it's ours, a step toward government that answers to the people, not special interests." His integrity shone brighter than ever, colleagues from both sides clapping him on the back, voters flooding his office with letters of gratitude. AOC's legacy, once unassailable in progressive circles, now bore the scars of scrutiny. Her influence waned, endorsements trickled, as the public demanded authenticity over optics. But Kennedy didn't dwell on downfall. he focused on uplift his positive role model, inspiring a new wave of ethical leadership. Alex Rivera, fully recognized as the whistleblower who sparked it all, launched advocacy tours, his story a beacon for silenced staffers everywhere. With Kennedy's endorsement, he established the Open Borders Ethics Fund, scholarships for young policy wonks studying transparency, funded by grassroots donations that poured in after the hearing. Protests had evolved into workshops, that Truth in Borders, now a curriculum in civics classes teaching kids the value of speaking up. Kennedy continued his Senate work with renewed vigor. His reputation, elevated as a paragon of principled governance polls, showed him as one of the most trusted figures in Washington. His Kongwan in bridging divides a blueprint for others. Yet, the true closure came in quieter moments. Kennedy visiting a Louisiana community center, where locals shared how the revelations empowered them to question local budgets. He listened, then spoke. Integrity isn't flashy. It's the daily choice to do right even when it's hard. This story, from lawsuit to law, teaches us profound lessons. First, integrity and courage in unveiling truth can dismantle even the most entrenched power structures hiding behind secrecy. In a world where influence often buys silence, standing firm like Kennedy did reminds us that one person's resolve backed by facts can ignite widespread change. Educationally, it underscores the responsibility of ethical conduct in politics. Leaders must prioritize transparency to foster public trust, as opacity breeds cynicism and erodes democracy. We learn that Minbach isn't optional. It's essential, a tool for accountability that ensures policies serve the many, not the few. Moreover, each individual plays a role, whether an aide like Alex raising alarms or a citizen demanding answers. Our actions contribute to a fairer society. By learning from conflicts, analyzing them not as battles, but as opportunities for growth, we build resilience. Schools should teach this case studies on whistleblowing debates, on funding ethics, encouraging students to question and act responsibly. In everyday life, it means voting informed, supporting transparent candidates, and speaking out against injustice. Kennedy's example educates us that true leadership empowers others, turning personal trials into collective progress. As the archives sealed the file on this saga, Kennedy walked the Capitol steps one last time in reflection. The sun set on a transformed landscape where truth no longer whispered, but declared itself boldly. What legacy will you build? Embrace integrity, educate yourself on ethics, and remember, in the face of concealment, your voice can be the light that guides us all forward. This dramatized tale, inspired by real-world struggles for openness, isn't just entertainment. It's a call to civic education. Reflect on it, discuss it, and apply its lessons. Responsibility starts with each of us. Thanks for joining this journey.